How's it going, guys? It's Eclipse here and welcome to today's video where we will be talking about the addiction that is World of Tanks, and yeah, both the console and the PC version. Obviously any version really. You've got World of Tanks Blitz as well. We're just going to be basically giving my opinion as a player that played for about 6.5 years now, maybe longer actually when I take into account the PC. But yeah, it certainly is a game that everybody really gets stuck into once you get that past the initial point, and that is the real key sticking point for World of Tanks itself, is the new player experience. Obviously when players get past that it becomes a lot better, and I think it's one of these slow burners where once you've kind of committed your time, you end up actually coming back to the game regularly. You're spending a lot of time actually doing a lot of things within the game, and you're actually moving forward through the tech tree lines, and that becomes the main priority of actually playing the game, you know, getting all of those tier 10s, and then it comes to the point where now you need to earn a load of silver to buy all of those tier 10s, and then it becomes, what premium tank do I pay for, how am I going to get there the fastest? I'm going to buy premium time. Then you become invested in the game, and then it becomes a case of, well, I've invested all of this money, so I've got to keep playing regardless of whether or not you're having as much fun, which, yes, to a degree that's the case, but of course, you know, you can always stop playing, and you can cut your losses with any single game. But it just seems like World of Tanks has got it kind of right with that. They always promise that there's going to be a better time within the game, and unfortunately for the majority of those times there's not, and it kind of gets worse every now and again. But of course that's wargaming for you. Yes, they do some really good things. I'm not going to say that it's absolutely all sunshine and rainbows, however, you know, there are those pretty awful times whereby, you know, they get things wrong. But yeah, I think it's with any games company though in modern times when it comes down to World of Tanks and why you kind of get addicted. It's similar to those kind of games that you'll be playing throughout history. You've got things like RuneScape that maybe last for 20 years now, and then you've got other games such as Call of Duty, how they've got that returning player base where it's just pretty much the same kind of concept. There's not been too much of a development on the concept, but it's all about creating new content and everything like that, and I think that that's what World of Tanks has kind of cracked into, whereby they produce new tank lines, they produce new tech trees. They're always trying to develop something new that will, you know, keep players playing for that 3-month period whilst they're waiting for some at least drop of content that they can get their hands on, and then it becomes like a free-for-all. Then they'll be playing loads and then it kind of drops off, and as it starts dropping off they release something else, and it's kind of that stagnated. It's not constant development like we see with a lot of games. It's just like periodic drops of just huge updates whereby they bring in a lot of stuff which drags people in, they stop playing again, and that's where I've predominantly ended up playing World of Tanks for anyway. As far as moving forward in terms of wargaming's future with the game, well, of course we don't have a magic ball. I can't see where they're going to be going with it, but I'm sure that this kind of development will continue. And can I recommend World of Tanks as a game to any new players? Well, it's kind of difficult, because once you reach past that stage where it's a bit painful at the beginning, where you don't know how to play the game, where you don't have any of the premium tanks, where, you know, they make the game easier, where you don't have any of the commodities which come in the form of those premium account or the silver that you've earned over those years that you've been playing, as I'm sure many of you who are watching this video have done. Of course, leave your comments as to the state of addiction. How much have you been playing? Do you play for years and years and years, or are you a newer player that's only played for maybe a month? What are you kind of thinking about that? I think we'll give it a little bit of context, because yeah, we can talk about all of these things, but from my own personal opinion is where I'm basing this off of, and I think it's a fairly decent experience. You know, I wasn't always one of the better players, I guess, in quotation marks. You know, I've played the game a long time, so of course I'm going to hopefully be better than someone that picks up the game at day one. So I think I've had a little bit of experience. You know, I have like a 60% win rate. I think the average is like 49 or something like that. So yeah, I know a little bit about what I'm doing. I'm not claiming to be the best, certainly not that. But I think the key thing with the game is that you're always trying to get better at the game, or if you're not trying to do that, you're always going for that game where you have just an utterly ridiculous game. You ram into someone and you manage to then flick them, and then you end up landing on someone else and you manage to actually deal like 2,000 ramming damage in just one fleeting second. And I think that is kind of what keeps me hooked on the game. It's those little moments where everything just goes RNG, you get all of the good luck, and then yeah, it kind of happens periodically. Obviously you can't kind of make those moments happen all of the time, because if you could, they probably wouldn't be as fun and you probably wouldn't be as excited when they do happen. But I always find those moments within the game that really keep me playing, and it's those games that really do push you towards trying to play more and get those events more regularly, even though they're never going to happen because they're based purely on luck and coincidence and stuff like that. So I think that's where I've enjoyed the most, and just going out after those like super high damage games where you're playing for 10,000 damage or whatever it is on World War II mode. If you're playing on console, obviously if you're playing on World of Tanks PC, you will have different things like front lines. Are you grinding to get as much damage possible as you ever could possibly deal in front line? Are you trying to go through rank battles? Are you trying to become the best player in the game, or are you simply just seeing how many people you can ram to death in one fleeting moment? Can you get 5 enemies all in one life? Well, yeah, those are the kind of things that I think most players enjoy about World of Tanks, and it's those kind of differences that you'll see within World of Tanks compared to some other different but similar games like War Thunder, whereby you've got the one-shot mechanics, but World of Tanks is more about, I guess, playing like more of an arcade game where it's a little bit more casual, I'd say. You can jump on and you don't have to have like expert knowledge of loads of stuff, but I think that's where wargaming's audience is. I know that obviously games like War Thunder grab a lot of the players from World of Tanks that maybe get a little bit more serious, and they're more in it for like realistic sort of stuff. So you've got the realistic battles in War Thunder, but World of Tanks is kind of aimed towards like I guess someone wants to just play a tank game. They're interested in maybe the history, but they're also interested in just having a good time and playing the game and enjoying it and taking in the scenery. I think the graphics are one of the best points of World of Tanks, and that's what you'll see it different compared to some of the other kind of AAA World of Tanks era kind of games, the tank games, tank simulators, anything like that. It's predominantly one of the better games for graphics, and you'll see that on PC if you ever watch any of that, if you're a console player. Or alternatively, if you look at the console versions of kind of World of Tanks type games, tank games, they're never anywhere near as good. I mean, I'm not saying that the World of Tanks console graphics are anything in comparison to any of the PC games, but considering, they're on a console that has a limited kind of graphics potential and that they have to all be the same, then yeah, I think it's a fairly decent way that they've done it. But obviously leave your comments as to that in the comment section down below, because that's just my own personal opinion, having played both the PC and console versions. Obviously it depends on what graphics settings you can have on your PC, it depends on how well optimized the game is, which I don't really know. I've got a pretty decent PC, so I can play it on ultra graphics in 200 FPS on PC, so it doesn't matter for me. But for those of you maybe who can't spend like upwards of £1,000 on a computer to be able to run it in super ultra, not that you have to spend that much to be able to run it in ultra, but if you don't want to just literally have any worries, then yeah, it costs about £1,000 to play games like that, and if you want any longevity to your computer, then yeah, it's going to cost you that. But World of Tanks in general, I think it does particularly well because it keeps up to current trends, kind of analyses the market, I guess, in terms of what's trending at the moment. Loot boxes came into the game pretty much as soon as they became popular, so yeah, you kind of had that, and that's probably why wargaming enjoy putting in so many tanks within those loot boxes, whether you play on console or PC, because both of them are just ridiculous. In fact, it's probably more ridiculous on the PC version in terms of pricing for some of the stuff that you get. On console, it's actually a really nice mix of price to reward compared to the PC version. Am I saying that they're good value, paying $40 for one tank? No, probably not, but when you compare it to like the $100 that you'll pay on PC if you try and buy a tank, yeah, you know, it's much better. So that's kind of my opinion of them. There's a lot more sales on console, and it's those kind of sales and the want to spend an extra 20 quid to be able to pick up 3 new tanks that maybe keeps people playing the game and becoming more and more addicted. And as you spend more money, you then get involved in it again, like we talked about at the beginning of the video, whereby you're constantly invested in the game and you want to spend more money, or you want to keep on playing because you've invested that money and you want to see it through. Things like premium time, because you've spent it for a year or however long that you've done it, you have to try and keep playing the game. Obviously you can call it quits. I'm not saying that everyone is kind of like that, and obviously you may be a completely free-to-play player and you've never spent a penny on World of Tanks, and so that's not the reason why you play, but I'm sure many of you will have highlighted some of those things that we've talked about in this video as to why you play World of Tanks. Is it the moments? Let me know in the comment section down below. Is it the gameplay? Is it trying to get better? Is it trying to perform the best? Is it about getting the highest amount of damage within the game? I think it's all stuff that is very interesting to see and obviously get an opinion on, because yeah, I think sometimes it's nice to take these discussion videos on World of Tanks itself, think about like what's actually going on with the game, talk about whether or not the future of the game is looking promising, because of course, as I'm sure many of you are if you subscribe to this channel, well, you predominantly want World of Tanks to continue because you probably play it. Yeah, I think it's something that everyone needs to talk about. We need to point out the flaws, which they definitely have a few of those. But yeah, I think that that's kind of the focus of this channel. Try and keep accountability to wargaming, try and provide some constructive criticism, although, you know, whether or not they listen, you've seen a lot of the CC programs on PC for World of Warships and World of Tanks be questionable, but the console version is probably a lot better. Obviously I'm a part of it, so I don't know. I don't really know what happens, to be honest, behind closed doors, whether or not it's just a ploy to get people on side and stop talking kind of trash about their game. Obviously you know from my content that I don't really filter myself towards anything like that. There's no, like, I don't know, anything that stops me from talking trash about the game. I'm completely free to do that, and I think it is definitely something that you guys probably like hearing, because most of the best viewed videos on this channel are talking basically and trying to hold wargaming accountable for some of the stuff that they're doing, and I think that that is really important for this channel, and also just for you guys playing the game and trying to enjoy the game, because things like the problems that we had with the colorblind mode, blind people or partially blind people not being able to play the game because it was physically or they're not actually able to see what's going on in the game because their colours are difficult. You know, not having options for those of them that play your game is obviously a negative, and we have to try and get those things into the game. You've got things like bugs that happened into people's PlayStations whereby they couldn't actually get onto the game because it kept crashing. We had the smoke errors causing people to just basically crash the entire game. There was loads of problems with the game, and if we just try and focus our attention on those, maybe wargaming will focus more on developing those and trying to get them fixed. So I think it's always interesting for us to talk about these things, and of course our addiction, or at least my addiction, to World of Tanks and just constantly trying to play it. I guess it's an interesting video topic for you guys, and just to hear the opinion of someone that's been playing for 6 years, because some of you may have only been playing for 2 weeks or whatever. I do see a couple of comments saying, well, I've only been playing for 15 days or whatever, and I think that that's kind of interesting to see what a new player, and I think that those are the kind of comments I like to see, because when you've been playing for 6 or 7 years, you don't realise what it's like to play as a new player or someone that's just come onto the game, or you have no idea about the game, because, you know, that was 6 years ago for me, and it's been a long time since I've had to think about, you know, what premium tank should I buy first, which is the best one, what is the best tank line I should go for next, And yeah, I think now that I've got predominantly some of the best premiums, some of the best tanks within the game, I don't need to think about that anymore. So definitely getting those comments from all of you, regardless of what year you've been playing since, regardless of what version you're playing. Obviously it's always interesting to see what your favourite tank is, so leave that in the comment section down below, and hopefully you've enjoyed this bit of a change of a video. I know it's kind of a bit of a rambling or discussion or just me chatting for 15 minutes, but yeah, hopefully it's been enjoyable. If you want to check out other videos that are fairly similar to this, I will leave them on screen right now, so check those out if you're interested. And of course there's a how to get better at World of Tanks if you're ever interested in that. But thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you'll join me in that video and the next one, and I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.